Now, given that a lot of nutrition professionals like to lead by example, I've gotten a ton of requests to do a video of what I eat in a day. And this definitely has a lot of merit to it, but today I'm going to go above and beyond it. In this video, I'll not only reveal what I typically eat in a day, but I'm going to break down for you guys exactly how I approach my eating in a day so that you can adopt this for yourself and start eating well. Hey there, I'm Dr. Anna. I'm a medical doctor. I was trained in Italy, and on this channel, you're going to learn how to master your health with the Mediterranean diet. All right, first, let's go over some of the key components that I use to craft my approach to eating on a typical day. Key point number one to keep in mind, I never go random when I start thinking about what I want to eat in a day. Now, what do I mean by this? I am not the kind of person that's going to draft out my exact meal plan for the week and then grocery shop according to the actual recipes or the meals that I'm trying to eat. Instead, what I've found makes this whole process effortless and sustainable and really fast for myself is that I really craft my grocery list to provide me a lot of balanced nutrition, healthful and flavorful ingredients so that when I go into my kitchen, I can just throw something together and I know it's going to be pretty good for me. Now, I talk a lot about how to do this in my video on grocery shopping, so check it out up here if you're interested. Now, what's the second key component that I keep in mind when thinking through my diet? Well, it's that I try to make the focus of whatever it is that I'm going to be creating for myself, a breakfast, a snack, a lunch, a dinner, around the healthy schema that I talk about in a lot of videos on this channel, and that's the healthy trifecta. So what we want to make sure we're doing is that every time we're eating, we're creating a nice balance between having enough protein, having enough fiber, and having enough healthy fat so that our digestion is going to be slowed down. The whole process is going to work seamlessly with our hormones, our neurotransmitters, our enzymatic juices, and ultimately is going to help us feel full and energized for longer after a meal, which is really the point of eating. We're eating for energy. Here's the third key component for how I approach my eating from a schematic way. And this is something that I picked up a little bit later in my life after living in Italy for 6 years. I focus on making my meals as nutritiously balanced as possible and as filling as possible so that I really don't even have to think about having a snack later. And the truth is, often if I'm in the hospital, I don't have time to be eating throughout my day. I'm usually really busy, and it's actually a lot more efficient if I'm just squeezing my eating into a smaller window of the day. So at this point, I'm often not snacking at all. And the way that I'm able to accomplish that is that I'm having meals that are extremely balanced and filling so that I'm not hungry just 1 to 2 hours after I finish the meal. I'm able to last several hours until I get to the next one. Now, some of you might be wondering, am I talking about intermittent fasting? No, not necessarily. You could absolutely approach an intermittent fasting approach to your eating so that you're actually eating all of your meals for the day in a narrow window out of the 24-hour period. Now, the fourth key component is that I focus on hydration. And here's the thing people misunderstand about hydration. If you're waiting for your brain to tell you that you feel thirsty, you're probably already a bit dehydrated. We actually should be reaching for water before we even feel that craving for drinking. And another cool thing about having enough hydration in our body is that this also helps us feel full and can prevent us from misinterpreting thirst for hunger. And I see this happen all the time, and I've experienced it myself. Sometimes when we're thirsty and we're not really focused and in tune with our body, maybe we're in the middle of something, we've got a lot going on, we're feeling stressed, we're going to be reaching for a snack when we easily could have just been satisfied with a glass of water. Now, how do you actually know your body is hydrated? The most simple way to do this is to check the color of your urine. It should be pretty clear, not cloudy, and about a light yellow color. But back to what I eat in a typical day. I'm going to break down for you guys just a walkthrough of what I would typically eat from the time I wake up till the time I go to bed. So when I first wake up, I'm not hungry for several hours. And this is something that actually took me years to hone in on. I was raised in a family where we would all have a sit-down breakfast before we went off to school. It was one of the best ways we could foster connections with each other and have a little bit of extra family time in the day. But once I got to college and I got a little bit older, I realized that my body didn't want to be eating at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. So what I actually do is I start with a little bit of caffeine. I'm either going to have a black tea or a coffee, and I wait to eat. It's possible that I'm not even really eating anything until 9 or even 10 a.m. Now, if it's not a clinic day for me, I usually like to get my exercise in the morning. So I'd go to the gym right when I wake up, and then I just deal with eating when I come home afterwards. If I'm in the hospital, it's a day shift, I'm probably gonna have to do my exercise in the evening. So instead, I just wake up and I eat a little bit later when it's convenient. Now, what am I gonna have for breakfast? Well, I almost always crave a sweet breakfast. That's just my preference. So I'm usually going to have one piece of fruit, some kind of a nut or a nut butter with a grain, maybe it's oats or quinoa or a crunchy granola, and then something that's protein packed. So that could be yogurt, it could be cottage cheese, it could be protein powder if I'm making a smoothie. Just depends on what I want to do that day and what time of the year it is. I like approaching breakfast in this way because the fruit is going to give me some fiber, the nuts or the seeds are also going to give me some fiber, the oats are going to give me some fiber. So that's the first component of the healthy trifecta. Then we're going to have protein from the dairy sources that I named, or the nuts or the seeds. And then we're going to have healthy fats, again, from the nuts or the seeds. Now, for lunch, and I have a whole video on lunch ideas, so if you're curious, you can check it out up here. I like to make my lunch really fast. I'm typically going to have salads in the warmer months and leftovers in the colder months. This could be a crunchy salad with fish or chicken breast or hard-boiled egg as my protein of choice. Sometimes I'm going to have tofu. I usually have some crunchy bits like some shredded carrot or purple cabbage, and then I always have some juicy aspects of my salad. Often it's going to be tomatoes. I also usually like to add a little crunchy bit on top, so this is some type of a seed. It might be pumpkin seeds, hemp seeds, or sunflower seeds. I'm rarely going to put any cheese on my salad, but if I do, it'll probably be a crumbled feta or even a crumbled blue cheese. Then I emphasize my protein, and my dressing is almost always just olive oil and vinegar. If you're curious to see what one of my salads looks like, I tend to eat a pretty big salad, and I have that in a video up here where I do a cooking tutorial with you. You can walk through that with me and make one yourself. And another thing that I picked up from Italy is having an espresso at the end of my lunch. Now, if I do have a snack in my day, it's probably going to look kind of similar to what I typically eat for breakfast. It's going to be usually a cut up vegetable or a piece of fruit, some kind of a nut or a seed, or it could be a nut butter, and then maybe it'll just be a little bit of yogurt, a little bit of cottage cheese, something that's protein packed. Again, trying to hit on that healthy trifecta. For dinner, I'm often going to eat pretty late for American standards. In Italy, a classic dinner time is around 8 p.m. and I've really adopted eating this way, and it works for me and my family. So we're usually going to have a 2-course dinner. We're almost always going to have a pasta or a rice or some kind of another whole grain like a buckwheat or a farro, and then we're going to have a protein and a vegetable. We eat super simply. Our meals are very streamlined. On a work night, we're not necessarily going to make some fancy recipe that requires a lot of baking or cooking. A few times a week, I'll often have a glass of beer or even a glass of wine, depending on the day. I break down my approach to eating dinner in another video up here. I give a few more dinner ideas. If you're interested, you can check that out. Now, dessert. I'm going to reveal for you all, I do have a sweet tooth, but I am not eating dessert every single day. If I'm going to have dessert on a typical weeknight, it'll be something like a piece of chocolate, literally a tiny square of chocolate, and I'm satisfied. A crispy wafer or a little tea cookie that I'm going to have with my night tea. Sometimes I want to have a little sweet treat alongside, but not always. Now, when it comes to celebrating, if it's a holiday, a birthday, an event, or a certain time of the year, I am definitely going to indulge in wonderful cakes or pies or ice cream or gelato. Dessert is a fabulous way to celebrate, and it's a lot of fun to do baking projects. My candy time of the year is in October. I will never buy candy outside of that month, and I will always buy candy inside of that month. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video and you're wondering if you can do this yourself, I would say absolutely you can. And this entire YouTube channel is dedicated to try to help you do just that. But maybe you're listening to this and you're thinking, my goodness, she's a healthcare professional. She's doing this and that's bad and that's good. And you might be thinking that some of the things that I mentioned won't work for you. And I always will encourage you to try what does work for you and leave the rest. If you're not interested in eating dairy, yogurt or cottage cheese are not going to work for you, that's totally fine. You can leave those out. If you're thinking you want to eat more red meat, you can probably find a way to incorporate that in a healthy way. Maybe you don't want to be eating pasta 5 or 6 nights a week like I do. Not a problem. You don't even need to touch it. So it's all about experimenting and finding what works for you and finding what you enjoy to eat. Diet, life needs to be enjoyable. So when I think to myself, is there room for improvement? Absolutely. Every day's a little different. Some days are more stressful than others. Some days I have more time to prepare food than others, and that's just the way it goes. But I like to think that I have a pretty balanced approach to my diet where I barely have to think about it. I know I'm getting the nutrition that I need. I am always eating the healthy trifecta, and I keep it pretty simple for myself. And if your mind is just racing and you cannot wait to dive in to start eating all of these ways, I definitely recommend you check out my complete guide over here where I break down different ideas for what to eat for every single meal of the day. Check out that video. I'll see you in there.